Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Jamie Lee Curtis, born November 22, 1958, is an American actress, producer, author, and humanitarian whose remarkable career has spanned over 4 decades. Known for her talent, intelligence, and authenticity, Curtis has evolved from a scream queen into one of Hollywood's most respected and versatile figures. Born in Santa Monica, California, Jamie is the daughter of legendary Hollywood stars Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. Her lineage placed her in the public eye early, but she quickly proved herself on her own merit. She studied briefly at the University of the Pacific before dropping out to pursue acting. In 1978, at just 19 years old, she made her film debut in John Carpenter's Halloween, portraying Laurie Strode, a role that would define the modern horror heroine and launch Curtis into international fame. Throughout the late 1970s and 1980s, Curtis became synonymous with the horror genre, appearing in hits like The Fog, 1980, Prom Night, 1980, Terror Train, 1980, and Halloween 2, 1981. Her sharp performances and grounded presence earned her the title of Scream Queen, but Curtis soon proved she could transcend genres. Her comedic talent shone brightly in Trading Places, 1983, where she won a BAFTA award, and later in A Fish Called Wanda, 1988, a critically acclaimed film that showcased her impeccable timing and emotional depth. She also became a staple of family entertainment with films like Freaky Friday, 2003, My Girl, 1991, and Christmas with the Cranks, 2004. In the 1990s, Curtis starred in True Lies, 1994, opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger, a performance that earned her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy. Her balance of humor, strength, and sensuality in the film remains one of her most memorable roles. Curtis later returned to her horror roots in the Halloween sequels and reboots, including Halloween H20. 20 years later, 1998, Halloween, 2018, Halloween Kills, 2021, and Halloween Ends, 2022. Her portrayal of Laurie Strode across generations became a symbol of resilience, trauma, and empowerment, reflecting Curtis's own evolution as an artist and woman. Beyond acting, Jamie Lee Curtis is a celebrated author of children's books, including Today I Feel Silly and Other Moods That Make My Day and Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born. Her writing often explores themes of self-acceptance, identity, and emotional honesty. She is also known for her philanthropic work, particularly in support of children's hospitals, AIDS research, and addiction recovery initiatives. Curtis has been candid about her own recovery journey from addiction, becoming an outspoken advocate for sobriety and mental health awareness. In 2023, Curtis received the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once, 2022, a wildly inventive film that reaffirmed her creative vitality and range. The win marked a triumphant moment in her career, a recognition of decades of dedication, reinvention, and fearless artistry. Off-screen, Jamie Lee Curtis is celebrated for her authenticity, humor, and advocacy of aging naturally. She has long rejected Hollywood's obsession with youth, embracing her gray hair and wrinkles as symbols of truth and experience. Through her honesty, compassion, and continuous reinvention, Jamie Lee Curtis has become more than a movie star. She is a cultural icon, a survivor, and a voice for authenticity in an often superficial industry. Jamie Lee Curtis's life and career reflect an extraordinary balance of legacy, independence, and reinvention. Despite being born into Hollywood royalty, she often speaks about feeling insecure as a young woman in the industry. Her parents, Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, divorced when she was young, and she grew up witnessing both the glamour and the emotional cost of fame. This early exposure shaped her sense of realism and her later insistence on authenticity, traits that became central to her identity both on and off screen. Curtis's career longevity can be attributed to her willingness to evolve. After dominating horror films in the late 70s and early 80s, she deliberately shifted to comedy and drama, proving she could embody a wide emotional range. Her comedic skill in Trading Places and A Fish Called Wanda demonstrated a fearlessness and physicality rarely seen among actresses of her generation. Critics praised her for her intelligence, wit, and lack of vanity, qualities that became her trademarks. In True Lies, 1994, Curtis delivered one of her most iconic performances. Her character, Helen Tasker, transformed from a bored suburban wife into a daring spy partner, a symbolic reflection of Curtis's own reinvention in Hollywood. The film's famous dance scene revealed her comedic bravery and emotional nuance, and it earned her multiple awards, including a Golden Globe. By the 2000s, Curtis's public persona shifted again. She became an outspoken advocate for body positivity and aging gracefully. In a now-famous More magazine photoshoot in 2002, she insisted on being photographed without makeup, special lighting, or retouching, a radical act in an industry obsessed with perfection. Curtis stated that she wanted to expose the illusion of celebrity beauty and help women accept themselves as they are. Her honesty resonated with millions, making her a voice for authenticity and self-acceptance. Her return to the Halloween franchise in 2018 redefined the horror archetype she helped create. Laurie Strode was no longer a frightened teenager but a trauma survivor confronting her past. The film and its sequels explored themes of generational pain, survival, and empowerment. And Curtis received widespread acclaim for grounding the genre in emotional realism. Her portrayal was hailed as a metaphor for women reclaiming their power in the wake of trauma, aligning with the #MeToo era's cultural reckoning. Off-screen, Curtis has built a life centered on love, family, and purpose. She has been married to actor and filmmaker Christopher Guest. This is Spinal Tap, Best in Show, since 1984, a remarkably enduring Hollywood marriage. Together, they have 2 children and maintain a private, grounded home life away from the spotlight. Curtis often describes their marriage as her anchor, crediting Guest's humor and stability with keeping her balanced. Her work as an author has also been deeply personal. Curtis has written over a dozen children's books that encourage emotional intelligence, empathy, and imagination. Titles like Is There Really a Human Race? And I'm Gonna Like Me, letting off a little self-esteem, reflect her belief in helping children understand their feelings and value themselves. Her writing style is warm, lyrical, and often drawn from her own life experiences as a mother and observer of human behavior. Philanthropy is another cornerstone of her legacy. Curtis has supported numerous charities, including the Children's Hospital Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Free Clinic, and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. She's been a passionate advocate for addiction recovery, sharing her story of overcoming painkiller dependency decades ago. Her honesty about addiction, rare among public figures, has inspired many to seek help and destigmatized the conversation around substance abuse. Curtis's 2023 Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once was a crowning achievement. Playing Deirdre Beaubierdre, a frumpy IRS inspector, she embraced physical and emotional transformation with humor and humanity. Her acceptance speech was heartfelt and humble. She dedicated the Oscar to all the people who have supported the genre movies I've made, the hundreds of thousands of people who worked alongside me, and the fans who've stood by me for 45 years. The moment symbolized not just her personal triumph, but the recognition of genre actors who rarely receive such acknowledgement. Today, Jamie Lee Curtis continues to be a beacon of resilience, authenticity, and creative courage. She is respected not only as an actress but as a thinker, someone who challenges Hollywood's illusions and embraces life's imperfections with grace and humor. Whether she's speaking about aging, addiction, family, or art, Curtis radiates a rare honesty that makes her one of the most beloved and enduring figures in American cinema. Jamie Lee Curtis's personal philosophy and public influence reflect a profound awareness of identity, impermanence, and truth. Beneath her Hollywood glamour lies a thoughtful, introspective individual who has spent decades examining what it means to live authentically in an artificial world. She has often described herself as a work in progress, emphasizing growth over perfection. Curtis has been open about her insecurities, her struggles with addiction, and the illusion of fame. In numerous interviews, she has spoken about how Hollywood fame can warp reality, how it rewards appearance over substance, and how she learned to detach her self-worth from public validation. This candid self-awareness has become one of her most admired traits. In her speeches and essays, Curtis often speaks about truth-telling as a moral and spiritual practice. She believes that honesty, both emotional and physical, is liberating. Her decision to stop dyeing her hair, to show her real body, and to speak frankly about her experiences with cosmetic surgery were not just personal choices, but acts of rebellion against the culture of denial in Hollywood. She once said, "The more I stripped away, the hair dye, the sucking in of my stomach, the lies, the more powerful I felt. I finally met myself." This ethos of radical honesty extends to her activism. Curtis uses her platform to champion compassion and realism. She is deeply committed to philanthropy and service, often saying that her life's second act is about giving back what fame gave me. She donates generously to children's hospitals and health causes, advocates for women's rights, and supports causes related to homelessness and addiction recovery. Her approach to aging is another cornerstone of her philosophy. Curtis has consistently rejected Hollywood's fear of growing old. She argues that aging is not a failure but a privilege, something to be embraced with dignity. In her public appearances, she carries herself with elegance, humor, and unapologetic realism. She once remarked, "We are all just wearing bodies that will change. The question is, will you change with grace? Or will you fight the tide?" Curtis also has a profound sense of humor about herself and the absurdities of fame. She often deflects praise with wit, calling herself an actress who got lucky and stayed grateful. This humility, combined with intelligence and empathy, makes her one of the most relatable stars in Hollywood despite her iconic status. In her personal life, Curtis prioritizes privacy and emotional stability. Her marriage to Christopher Guest remains one of the strongest in the industry. She has described Guest as her home, crediting their shared sense of humor and mutual respect for keeping them grounded. She also takes pride in her role as a mother, frequently expressing that raising her children was the most meaningful work of her life. Another important aspect of her public persona is her spiritual curiosity. Though not aligned with any organized religion, Curtis often explores themes of purpose, compassion, and connection in her writing and interviews. She has spoken about finding meaning through acts of service, creativity, and honesty, suggesting that true spirituality lies in authenticity and kindness, not in dogma or ritual. Her 2023 Oscar win marked more than a career milestone. It symbolized the recognition of a woman who has endured, evolved, and remained true to herself. In that moment, Curtis represented all those who have worked for decades without acknowledgement, and all women who have aged in an industry that rarely allows it. Her joy was collective. She even called her award ours, dedicating it to everyone who had believed in her across the years. Beyond her artistry, Jamie Lee Curtis has become a cultural voice of wisdom and humor. She speaks openly about the contradictions of success, the pain of loss, and the beauty of imperfection. Her life story, from Hollywood royalty to self-made icon, reflects resilience, courage, and the power of authenticity. She once summarized her philosophy simply: if you tell the truth, you never have to keep track of your lies. And that's freedom. Jamie Lee Curtis today stands not just as an actress, but as a truth-teller, humanitarian, and survivor. Her life and work remind the world that beauty lies not in perfection, but in presence, in being fully, unapologetically oneself. Jamie Lee Curtis's cultural legacy extends far beyond her filmography. She has become a symbol of authenticity, empowerment, and evolution in modern cinema. Her influence is deeply interwoven with the changing roles of women in Hollywood and the shifting cultural conversations about identity, age, and truth. From her earliest appearance in Halloween, 1978, Curtis helped redefine what a female protagonist could be. Laurie Strode wasn't a helpless victim. She was intelligent, resourceful, and emotionally grounded. In an era when horror often reduced women to stereotypes, Curtis gave the genre a new kind of heroine: resilient, human, and capable of survival. Laurie's character became a blueprint for later Final Girls, and established Curtis as the founding matriarch of modern horror. As the decades passed, Curtis's career itself became a metaphor for survival. Like her on-screen alter ego, she endured the ever-shifting landscape of Hollywood, an industry that often sidelines women after a certain age. But Curtis refused to disappear. Instead, she reinvented herself repeatedly, moving from horror to comedy, to family films, to drama, and eventually to art house success. In doing so, she showed that reinvention, not reinvention for vanity's sake, but out of curiosity and courage, could sustain an artist's life. Her influence on feminism in film is profound. Curtis's work has often highlighted women's inner lives, their complexity, humor, strength, and contradictions. In A Fish Called Wanda, she played a clever and confident woman who manipulated her way through a sea of foolish men. In True Lies, she explored female sexuality and empowerment with boldness rarely granted to women in action films. And in Everything Everywhere All at Once, her portrayal of Deirdre, an unglamorous, middle-aged woman, became a celebration of imperfection and humanity. Her decision to age publicly and naturally in a world obsessed with youth is another layer of her cultural importance. Curtis became a trailblazer for honest aging in Hollywood, joining figures like Frances McDormand and Helen Mirren in rejecting artificial ideals. When she said, "I want there to be no concealing of anything," she wasn't just talking about wrinkles, she was declaring a moral stance against illusion itself. Curtis has also influenced the horror genre's evolution in a unique way. The Halloween reboot trilogy, 2018 to 2022, recontextualized Laurie Strode not as a damsel haunted by trauma, but as a survivor reclaiming her story. The film's exploration of intergenerational trauma, paranoia, and healing echoed contemporary discussions around PTSD and resilience. Critics and audiences alike saw Curtis's performance as both a cinematic and cultural statement that survival is not the end of the story, but the beginning of understanding it. Beyond film, Curtis's impact resonates in literature, social activism, and public discourse. Her children's books have encouraged emotional literacy and self-acceptance for over 2 decades, making her a voice of compassion for younger generations. Her activism for addiction recovery and mental health awareness has broken long-standing stigmas, inspiring people to seek help and speak out. In recent years, Curtis has also become an advocate for creative freedom and kindness within Hollywood. She's been vocal about mentorship, encouraging young actors, especially women, to define success on their own terms rather than through external validation. She often tells them that fame is a byproduct, not a goal, emphasizing integrity over popularity. Curtis's influence can even be felt in the fashion and cultural aesthetic she embodies. Her gray hair, tailored simplicity, and confident demeanor have redefined what glamour can mean in later life. She has shown that elegance doesn't come from artifice but from self-knowledge. Her cultural footprint is also visible in the affection of her peers. Directors, actors, and fans describe her as warm, direct, and fearless. Michelle Yeoh, her Everything Everywhere All at Once co-star, called her the beating heart of humanity on set. Curtis's humility and joy in others' success, famously cheering for her colleagues at award shows, have endeared her to both the industry and the public. At this stage in her life, Jamie Lee Curtis embodies something rare, a full-circle artist who has transcended fame to become a voice of wisdom. Her legacy is one of courage, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet bravery of telling the truth, accepting imperfection, and continuing to grow. She stands as a bridge between eras, the old Hollywood she was born into, and the more inclusive, self-aware one she helped shape. Through her honesty, humor, and empathy, Jamie Lee Curtis has become more than a performer. She is a teacher, survivor, and cultural compass. As she once put it, with characteristic wit and grace, "I'm not chasing youth anymore. I'm chasing depth." Jamie Lee Curtis's influence on the horror genre and her enduring bond with fans represent some of the most remarkable aspects of her long career. No other actress in modern film history has had such a sustained and evolving relationship with a single genre, or with the audience that grew up watching her. When Curtis first appeared as Laurie Strode in Halloween, 1978, she became the face of a new cinematic archetype, the final girl. But Laurie was more than a trope. Curtis imbued her with vulnerability, intelligence, and quiet courage, qualities that made audiences root for her. She wasn't sexualized or shallow. She was a real young woman facing unimaginable terror. This grounded realism transformed Halloween from a low-budget thriller into a cultural phenomenon and set a new standard for character-driven horror. As sequels and imitators flooded the genre in the 1980s, Curtis remained a guiding light, the rare performer whose presence lent emotional credibility to even the bloodiest narratives. Films like The Fog, 1980, Prom Night, 1980, and Terror Train, 1980, further cemented her status as horror's reigning queen. Yet Curtis never treated these roles as mere stepping stones. She gave each one psychological weight, creating empathy where audiences expected only screams. Her decision to return to Halloween aged 20 years later, 1998, marked a pivotal moment in horror cinema. Instead of playing Laurie as a traumatized relic, she portrayed her as a survivor who had built a life while carrying her scars. The film resonated deeply with fans, especially women, because it acknowledged that trauma doesn't vanish with time. It lingers, shapes, and ultimately strengthens. When Curtis reprised the role again in Halloween, 2018, she brought even more emotional complexity. Laurie had evolved into a woman hardened by decades of fear but driven by the determination to protect her family. The trilogy that followed, Halloween, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, turned into a multi-generational story about women confronting inherited trauma, mother, daughter, and granddaughter. This thematic depth, rarely seen in horror franchises, was largely a result of Curtis's influence and creative input. Critics and scholars now cite her performances as cornerstones of feminist horror. Laurie Strode is not simply a survivor. She's an embodiment of resilience and reclamation. Through Curtis, the final girl evolved into a warrior woman, someone who confronts her demons rather than merely escaping them. Her work helped redefine horror as a space for emotional truth, not just fear. Curtis's relationship with fans has been one of genuine mutual respect and affection. She has always acknowledged that her success and longevity owe much to the loyalty of the horror community. At conventions and interviews, she often embraces fans, listens to their stories, and treats them as equals. Many survivors of real-life trauma have told her that Laurie Strode gave them courage. Curtis receives such messages with humility, saying that Laurie belongs to all of us. Her ability to connect across generations is rare. Fans who first saw Halloween in theaters in 1978 now share it with their children and grandchildren. Curtis has become a bridge between generations of horror lovers, an icon of continuity in a genre that constantly reinvents itself. She once described her fans as the family I never expected but always needed. Beyond horror, Curtis also recognizes the genre's cultural significance. She has defended it against dismissive critics, arguing that horror has always reflected society's deepest fears, from violence and alienation to survival and trauma. She credits John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the creators of Halloween, with giving her the role that taught her what cinema could mean when it speaks directly to human emotion. Her respect for fans is reflected in her continued engagement with the Halloween legacy even after its conclusion. At film festivals and Q&A sessions, Curtis speaks not as a distant star but as a collaborator in a shared story. She often says, "I don't own Laurie, we all do. I just got to play her." That humility has deepened her mythic status. She's both a legend and someone deeply human. In later years, Curtis has also used her platform to defend the horror genre's artistic value. When she accepted her 2023 Academy Award, she gave a powerful shout-out to horror fans, saying, "To all the people who have supported the genre movies I've made for all these years, we just won an Oscar." It was a historic moment, not only for her but for the millions of fans who had followed her from the haunted houses of the 1970s to the multiverse of the 2020s. It was a vindication for a genre long overlooked by awards and a moment of pure gratitude from its greatest queen. Today, Jamie Lee Curtis is more than just the Scream Queen. She is a symbol of endurance, empathy, and evolution. She has shown that horror can reveal profound truths about fear and healing, and that fame can be used to uplift others. Her connection to her audience, honest, emotional, and lifelong, has made her one of the most beloved figures in popular culture. Even as she embraces new roles and causes, Curtis continues to celebrate the community that made her. The people who love horror understand life. They know we all face monsters, inside and out, and that surviving them is a sacred act. Jamie Lee Curtis's artistic philosophy and creative legacy reveal a woman who has always treated acting as both craft and calling, not merely as a means to fame, but as a vehicle for truth, connection, and healing. Throughout her career, she has expressed that her approach to performance is deeply rooted in empathy and honesty, two qualities that have guided her through every genre she's explored. Curtis views acting as a mirror to the human condition. She often says that great performances emerge not from pretending, but from revealing. Unlike many stars of her generation, she has never tried to create a mystique around her work. She speaks plainly about the process, the pressure, and the vulnerability that come with it. For her, the art of storytelling lies in emotional transparency, an actor's willingness to let the audience see something real, even if it's uncomfortable. "My job as an actor," she once said, "is not to be perfect, it's to be true. The truth is where people connect." This belief explains why Curtis's performances have aged so gracefully. From Trading Places to Everything Everywhere All at Once, she grounds even the most outlandish characters in recognizable humanity. She's never afraid to look foolish, awkward, or flawed. In fact, she embraces those qualities as the source of emotional power. Her characters, whether they're terrified babysitters or hardened bureaucrats, always feel lived in. Curtis has also developed a strong sense of responsibility as an artist. She often describes acting as a communal act, something that belongs to everyone involved, the cast, the crew, and especially the audience. Her view of fame is refreshingly humble. She sees it as an accident of persistence rather than destiny. This humility allows her to approach her work with the same enthusiasm she had when she started at 19. Reminding younger performers that every day on set is a privilege. Her creative philosophy extends beyond acting. As an author, Curtis has used storytelling to encourage emotional honesty among children. Her books often explore themes of identity, self-worth, and family, the very same ideas she wrestles with in her acting. She has said that her writing is a love letter to the child I once was, who wanted to be told that she was enough. Curtis's worldview has been shaped by both Hollywood excess and human fragility. Growing up as the child of two famous actors, she saw early on the dangers of ego and illusion. Her father, Tony Curtis, was charismatic but distant. Her mother, Janet Leigh, was loving yet overwhelmed by stardom. These experiences instilled in her both admiration for art and skepticism toward fame. She once described fame as the world's most seductive drug. It gives you everything and takes away the part of you that needs nothing. Over time, she developed a spiritual resilience that now defines her public persona. Curtis has often spoken about the value of silence, service, and gratitude. She meditates, practices simplicity, and focuses on giving rather than acquiring. In interviews, she emphasizes that happiness doesn't come from success but from meaning, and meaning, for her, comes from connection. Her later career choices reflect this clarity. Rather than chasing commercial roles, she gravitates toward projects that challenge or inspire her, films that speak to the heart rather than the marketplace. Her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once, 2022, epitomized that artistic freedom. Curtis said she accepted the role precisely because it allowed her to let go of vanity completely, to embrace vulnerability, absurdity, and empathy in equal measure. That decision led her to the first Oscar of her career, proving that truthfulness, not youth or perfection, is what endures. Curtis also continues to mentor emerging artists, encouraging them to find balance between creativity and self-care. She advises young actors to protect their private lives fiercely, reminding them that fame can be fleeting but integrity lasts. In her words, the most radical thing you can be in Hollywood is real. Realness is rare, it's revolutionary. Her influence now reaches beyond film into broader cultural philosophy. She has become a thought leader on authenticity, aging, and creativity. Her speeches and essays, often spontaneous, raw, and unscripted, resonate with anyone who has faced insecurity or self-doubt. She doesn't present herself as a guru or icon. She presents herself as a fellow traveler, learning in public. As an artist, Jamie Lee Curtis embodies what it means to grow older with courage and purpose. She has turned her career into a continuous act of transformation, not reinvention for the sake of relevance, but for the sake of truth. Each stage of her life has revealed a new dimension of her artistry. The Scream Queen, the comedienne, the mother, the philosopher, the elder stateswoman of empathy. Her philosophy can perhaps be best summed up by one of her reflections on art and life. Art isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about finding yourself, again and again, in the stories we tell. Jamie Lee Curtis's legacy, therefore, is not only cinematic but humanistic. She stands as proof that authenticity can be an art form, that courage can coexist with vulnerability, and that the truest measure of greatness is not fame, but the lives touched by one's honesty. Jamie Lee Curtis's influence on younger generations of actors and filmmakers is profound, far-reaching, and quietly revolutionary. She has become a model not just for how to sustain a long career in a volatile industry, but how to do so with dignity, integrity, and a fierce sense of self. Her example resonates deeply in an era when authenticity and emotional intelligence have become as vital to storytelling as beauty and charisma once were. For many younger performers, Curtis represents a blueprint for artistic longevity, someone who never let herself be defined by one role, genre, or decade. She has outlasted trends not by chasing relevance, but by deepening her craft and expanding her humanity. Actors like Emma Stone, Florence Pugh.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.